solution. We burning down the night, shooting bullets at the moon, baby. This is how we roll.
Sean Hannity. The new Sean Hannity Show. More behind-the-scenes information on breaking news and more bold, inspired solutions for America.
Welcome. This is Dr.Gina Loudon filling in today for Sean Hannity, but let not your heart be troubled. Sean will return after his much-deserved time off. He's been tweeting during his time off. You should check it out. Follow him at Sean Hannity, and you can follow me at Real Dr. Gina. I have to apologize up front to you. I am, first of all, so excited to be here with this audience. I listen to this show every day. That is the absolute truth. Every day. I've even walked around a mall. It's kind of embarrassing. Holding my phone, right? Listening to this show. I love this audience. I love this whole team that makes this show happen. And I love this show. So there was no way when Sean Hannity asked me if I would fill in for him today that I was going to say no. But there's one thing you need in radio. I mean, you could do radio with half a brain sometimes. I've done it. I've been in radio a long time. Started out in St. Louis in Alabama. And now I do television. But you can do radio without everything being perfect. It's not like television where you actually have to look good. You can go in jeans, t-shirt. You don't have to put on makeup. You can throw your hair in a ponytail. I'm sure Sean does that a lot. But there's one thing you need, and that's voice. So I had the bright idea. My mom died this year, and I didn't want to have Christmas in that normal, traditional. Everyone told me, Dr. Gina, this is what you have to do. And I'm the one with a psychology background, but I needed help. Nobody's ready to lose their mom, no matter how much training you have in psychology. So I asked people, what should I do? How do I get my children through this? I have 5 amazing children that all miss their grandma. And I miss my mom, and Christmas was just going to be like, let's see how many minutes we can count between crying episodes, pretty much. So everybody said, do something different. So I had the bright idea, knowing that I was doing this show with you today and looking so forward to it, the bright idea of taking my whole family to Lake Tahoe skiing. Not the brightest idea. Ski slopes and yelling across ski slopes and being cold and dry for the entire week before you're ready to do a show produces pretty much laryngitis. So as of yesterday, I had no voice at all. So I am apologizing to you for my voice, but I'm determined to enjoy this show with you and to try not to annoy you very much with my raspy voice. I'm going to pretend like it's sexy, even though I think it's more chipmunky and squeaky than sexy. We're going to just go with sexy, and we'll do this together. So I'm very excited to be with you again. If you want to learn more about me, you can go to drginashow.com. That's my website. You can also find me and pretty much everything I'm going to talk about today on the show. You will be able to find on my Twitter feed at Real Dr. Gina. Real Dr. Gina, that's it. And I want to talk to you. I want to start right off because I know some of you are saying, oh, why did you put everything on Twitter? I'm not on Twitter. I don't like social media. I'm trying to protect my privacy. And I already have a little bone to pick right there because I believe in this election, we must be engaged in social media. I believe we have to be engaged in the culture, and I believe we have to be engaged in social media. I want to talk to you about that right at the top here because I do a show every day, a television show. It's called America Trends, and I get pushback from people all the time. Why would a good, solid conservative like yourself, why would you talk about what's trending on social media? Who cares? Well, I'll tell you who cares. That's everybody you're trying to reach. Your children, your grandchildren, the millennial generation that doesn't know anything about politics. Very few of them. That's who pays attention to those trends. If you want to fish for people to understand the reality of what is happening in our country and our world, you must engage them. You can't keep preaching to the choir, and neither can I. Yes, I think it's important that you go to your church or your synagogue, but I am going to beg you. All pride aside, I'm going to beg because you have got to be on Facebook. You've got to be on Twitter. I think you should be on Instagram. I know you're saying now, you can't even put a link on Instagram, for crying out loud. What intelligent thinking person would be on Instagram? I'll tell you who. Those who understand that that's the most used social media by the next millennial generation, and those who want to engage in ideas with them. That's who. That's you, right? It's certainly me. You want to be able to communicate with your grandchildren? Guess where they're going to be? They're going to think you're cool, grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, mom, dad, if you're on Instagram. It starts there. It starts with gaining the respect and getting them to engage in your ideas. Otherwise, they're just going to believe what their mindless institutions are telling them. You know this, right? So I cover trends every day. I talk about trends. I've even done the show Wife Swap. I know. Collective gasp. I can hear it. I can hear it. And this is a one-way microphone, and I can still hear your gasp out there. Why would you do Wife Swap? I got that. Believe me, I got that from a lot of conservatives. Why would you do it? Because if we don't engage the culture, we forfeit this fight. I think it's critical. The next election will be won by the culture. It will be won by your commentary and social media. And let's get down to some of the reasons why maybe you think you don't need to be on social media. By the way, speaking of social media, at Sean Hannity on Twitter. Follow me at Real Dr. Gina. You can find my website, drginashow.com, and I'm on Facebook, Dr. Gina as well. All of that aside, what's important is that you're on there. I am on there every single day. I'm out there. I'm screaming it from the rooftops. I see this as my children's entire future, and I have 5 of them. One by the blessing of adoption, who happens to have Down syndrome, and my little boy's future. How do you think I feel about Obamacare with a child with Down syndrome? I have big, strong opinions on this. I am out there every day, but I need you to be out there too. And I not only need you to be out there. If you say check, 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 and you've checked all those boxes, I'm out there on social media, Dr. Gina. You can stop lecturing me right now. I'm going to say to you, well, then get everyone in your church involved in social media. There is a challenge. Oh, yeah, there is a challenge. I promise you, because do you know that only 20% of women who warm the church pews on Sunday even bother to vote in a general election? Did you know that? 20%. And only 50% of men who warm the church pews on Sunday even bother to vote in a general election. What are we going to do about this? And we wonder why we lose. We wonder why the horrid establishment controls our party. We wonder why people like Hillary continue to get away with lies and murder. We wonder. There's nothing to wonder about. We're not engaged. Now, you say, but Dr. Gina, I don't, it's so dirty. You know, social media, there's a lot of stuff you see. Well, you know what? We might just have to kind of just buck up on that. Yeah, I see stuff come across my Twitter feed that, yeah, yuck, you know, and so unfollow that. You say, well, then I forfeit my privacy. I'm worried about my privacy. Can I talk to you about your privacy for a moment? In real terms, a little bit raw here. You don't have any privacy. Remember the TSA? They have naked pictures of you. Remember the IRS? Yeah, they have pretty much whatever information they want to have on you, and they're willing to use it against you, and they've proven it. Remember the NSA? Right. You get the point. You have no privacy. There is no point whatsoever in not being engaged in this next election. I don't have to tell you it's the most important one, maybe of our country ever, certainly of our lifetime. You have no excuse. Please get involved in social media. Be in every social medium you can. Spend 15 minutes a day. Give it that. Is your country worth that? 15 minutes a day? Spend 15 minutes per day engaging, reposting, talking to people. And I'm going to say one more thing about this too. Don't chase off everybody who disagrees with you. See what happens. See what happens if you listen to them. Maybe they'll listen to you. It happens on occasion. Now, my background psychology, and I tell you, I don't want you to think that I'm like a soft person. Wait till I get talking about terror here in a minute. I'm pretty hardcore on some of this stuff. I'm a gun-toting conservative, but I will tell you this. we have got to reach out to people via social media. We've got to be willing to listen. We've got to be willing to hear other opinions, to love them anyway, and to invite them in. And for this next selection, that's going to be my challenge to you. Coming up later on in the show, I am going to fill you in on the latest numbers that show that Donald Trump's huge lead in the polls may actually be a lot bigger than the polls show. You won't want to miss that. Also, Katrina Pearson, Tamara Holder, Dan Joseph, and Matt Schlapp will join me later on in the show. This is Dr. Gina filling in for Sean Hannity, and we'll be right back at you here in just a moment. Stay right where you are.
Biggest newsmakers, the best coverage, and the issues you care about every single day. This is the Sean Hannity Show.
Hannity, the one and only. And during that break after my social media pep talk, I trust that you all signed up for your Twitter accounts if you weren't on there already. And you can follow me at Real Dr. Gina. Tweet at me and I might just read your tweets on air. And don't forget to follow Sean Hannity too, at Sean Hannity. And just to make it easy on you, I will tweet links to everything we are talking about on the show today. It's going to be power packed. And, during the holidays, sometimes you just want to be with the family, wish you could just play a best of, but someone has to be on the microphone to keep up the fight because radical Islam is at our front door. And President Obama is about to kick it wide open. My background is in psychology. It's what I studied for way too many years, honestly. I have to try to unlearn things just to actually try to help people. I'm not kidding. Because people come to me all the time. It's natural. When you know somebody has a PhD in a helping behavioral field like that, you'd be at dinner and somebody will come over and say, hey, can I talk to you about something? This happens to me all the time. And I'm always glad to help. But one of the things that I've noticed is a vacuum in the conversation about the psychology of terror. And I believe the reason, perhaps, that nobody's talking about what is really going on in the mind of a terrorist is because it isn't good news. It isn't good news. There is really not a lot of information and data out there that says you can fix the mind of a jihadist. In fact, quite the contrary. I've written extensively on this, and as I said, you can find it all. It's all linked there on Twitter. I believe we actually just tweeted out some of my latest articles on the mindset of a jihadi. But experts offer a number of answers, including that terrorists prey, for example, on those who feel disenfranchised, who see themselves as victims, or who have the desire to take action and believe in violence. One thing is certain about terror, that this is just math. For it to have impact, terrorists must find a regular and steady supply of recruits. Part of the reason for this, according to Gerald M. Post of George Washington University, he says that Islam preys on collectivism and globalism. He said the recipe for terror includes a combination of a strong sense of victimization, a fear of group extinction, and a feeling of a higher moral condition than the lives of the enemy. And they also must feel a lack of political power to make the wanted change. So collectivism and globalism have contributed to this. And I just want to ask this question really fast. How many conservatives do you know that have ever advocated for collectivism or globalism? Right? Could this terrorist episode in the fabric of American history have been prevented? Could it have been prevented had Reagan conservatives been in control this whole time? It's a good question to ask. Well, one guy named Ari Kruglansky, he's co-director of the National Consortium for the Study of Terrorism and Responses to Terrorism. He surveyed thousands of Arabs and people from other cultures, and he found that those most likely to support terrorist activities against Americans are indeed those with the strongest collectivist mentality. Conservatives have been warning about this for how long? One particular psychologist who has studied this extensively, I don't know anyone who's studied it more, is Nikolai Sinnels. I've had him on my show, America Trends. And he has come to the conclusion that Islam and Muslim culture have certain psychological mechanisms. These are his words. He says that harm development and increase criminal behavior. Now, those are really strong words. Really strong words. But he continues and he says, as we have already seen, no army of social workers or generous welfare states, sweet-talking politicians, politically correct journalists, or democracy-promoting soldiers can stop these enormous forces. Where are the demonstrations in the streets against radical Islam by peaceful Muslims? I want to get your opinion on this. If we can't fix it with psychology, and we're getting ready to bring in more, how do we fix this? How do we fix this? What is the answer? You know the call-in number. It's 800-941-SEAN, 800-941-SEAN, 800-941-7326 is that number, and I want to hear from you. What is the answer? Is it closing mosques? Is it watching them more closely? Is it refusing refugees? We're going to get to all of that coming up in just a moment. Stay right where you are.
Keeping Uncle Sam accountable to you every day. Hannity is on.
Welcome back. Dr. Gina Loudon filling in. Sean is out today, spending time with his family during the holidays and possibly getting in a round of golf or two. I'm coming to you from sunny Southern California from the studios of AM 600 Kogo. This is actually Sean's newest affiliate. So great to have Sean on the air here on Kogo in San Diego. 3 hours a day, every day. That's all we ask. You know the call-in number, 800-941-7326, 800-941-SEAN. Going for a moment to your Twitter comments. Thank you, JC, for pointing out the fact that some people may have trouble spelling my name on social media. At Real Dr. Gina is my Twitter handle, but it is Real Doctor, that's just DR, and then Gina, the Italian spelling. I don't know why my parents picked the Italian spelling because I don't really think I'm Italian, but let's just go with that. All right. Talking a little bit about the psychology of terror, I do think it's really important that we get down to the fact that we may or may not be able to fix these people if they come here. This is the issue. So what do we do? As somebody who has a background in psychology, I can tell you, you can take a simple thing, and I'll use myself because I don't like to make anybody paranoid and think I'm talking about them because a lot of people confide their problems in me, and I love that. My parents divorced when I was little, and I can tell you, even this Christmas, I was still facing things from my childhood. Spent this Christmas with my dad in Tahoe with my whole family. But my dad was there, and I love him very much. But we are still climbing over hurdles from the fact that he left when I was a little girl. My mom died this year. It was great to spend Christmas with him. And we are on completely opposite sides of the political spectrum, which I credit him greatly for my career in media. Because if it weren't for him giving me the courage to know that you can have a conversation and disagree strongly and still love each other, I don't know if I could do this job every day. I just don't know. But I can tell you this, however many years of counseling and however many years that I have counseled others for problems, I can tell you it's very hard to fix people. Counseling is a lucrative profession because people continue to need help. It's very hard to fix people. So you take someone raised with a hate for America. You take someone with an anti-colonialist view from the beginning. You start out with someone who thinks that everything that we love about Western culture is what is wrong with the world. And I don't know how you shake that out. I don't know. So if you can't shake that out, what do you do? What do you do? Now, here's something interesting. By the strictest interpretation of the Quran, as I understand it, and according to the research that I've read, This is the thing that scares me the most about the radicals and what they believe. In Islam, for the most radical of those adherents, right? There is only one way for sure to go to heaven. This is what they're taught. Now, you might go to heaven, right, if you do good things. You know, and you look at different Western religions, and we see that. We see Judaism and Christianity and all these different Buddhism, whatever religion you want to look at. There are many ways to go to heaven. Christianity, we say, hey, we can still be sinners. There's grace. You know, Catholicism and Judaism, you can do good things and it can make up for what you've done wrong in your life and you can still go to heaven. My understanding, and I'm not an expert in Islam and I don't want to pretend to be, my background psychology, and that's where I'm going with this, but my understanding is that in Islam, that's a different thing. There's one sure way that these young, radicalized jihadis are taught they can go to heaven. And it's by becoming a martyr, killing for Allah. If that's the only sure way you know to get to heaven, you see where I'm going with this, right? And then it starts to make a lot of sense. The San Bernardino killing, for example, and the mother of Malik, who did nothing, starts to make sense. If you think that this is your ticket to heaven, for your daughter to be part of killing for Allah, why would you tell? Why would you care if your grandchild is abandoned? Because your daughter's going to go to heaven. Do you see what I'm saying? I don't know psychologically how you fix that. So what do we do? What do we do as a nation when leading psychologists and the data all lead to that place? What are the answers? 800-941-7326, 800-941. Sean. Some are leaving. Some say Trump. Some say close down mosques. Some say just love them more. What do you do? Well, Larissa Scott on Twitter says, please stop saying radical and instead say devout. I was using the word adherent too. I appreciate that, Larissa. I was using the word adherent because I think it's important to point out that this is just what the Quran is teaching. This is just the strictest interpretation of that. Now, I've heard some very powerful interviews. One in particular, a young girl that called in to Sean's show. And you feel for the Muslims who are being the most affected by this. But I still want to ask this. When are they going to start demonstrating in the streets? When are they going to form massive protests for what the adherents in their religion or their political system, as I tend to see many of these radical Islamists, when are they going to start protesting? When are the peaceful Muslims going to start causing such an uproar that it stops those who might want to radicalize? That's my question. When is that going to happen? And what is our answer? All right, I am going to go to Stephen calling from Fresno. Go ahead. Hi, Stephen. Welcome to the show.
Good afternoon. First of all, you have a very strong, charismatic radio personality for openers. And my question is, what gives you the right to tell us as free Americans we need to be on Twitter or we need to be on Facebook? I hate that word, need. Do I tell you you need to be on Tinder? Do I tell you need to be on Dolly Madison?
I appreciate that, Stephen. And you know what? You don't need to unless you want to affect the next election. My point is that I think a lot of people, I go on speaking engagements and I go to these rooms full of people, and there may be sometimes 100 people, sometimes 1,000 people. It doesn't really matter. I will ask them to raise their hand if they're on social media. And I'll get about a 30% response, Stephen, of people that are on social media. And a lot of times, the people that will go to these meetings, I want to say they're over 50. Okay? Nothing wrong with that. Those are the solid base of our conservative politics, and I appreciate them so much. My goal is effectiveness. I want them to be effective. And when I hear them say things like they're still sending postcards or calling their friends on the phone to make sure they go vote, I want to say, do you know how many more people you can affect if you're on social media? But many of them don't like the idea of social media because I honestly believe, and here I go, now in addition to being charismatic, I'm not sure if that was an insult or a compliment, and it doesn't really matter. I appreciate the comment. Since I don't have much of a voice, I hope that I'm getting some energy here, and giving it out to you. But my point is that I want them to have the biggest impact, Stephen, and I want to make sure that they understand that social media can be a tool. I don't like I don't like the fact that liberals own most of social media and that they gather data on social media. But my point is they already have that data. And I just don't want conservatives to stay away from social media and hand the election off to Hillary just because they're afraid of the implications of being on social media, because I think the implications of not being on social media are far more severe. Scott, calling from Fort Isabel, Texas. Hello, Scott. Welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, Dr. Gina, and Happy New Year to you and your family.
Happy New Year.
Thank you for taking my call.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we've already been infiltrated by the Muslims, and I've read the Quran, and I actually had to put it down and pick it up again and read it a couple of times because it was just so violent what I've read in it. The Muslims they're after world domination. That's what they're after. There's no Muslims against other Muslims. They don't care if they're radical, if they're jihad or any type of radical Muslim. They don't care. All the Muslims are for themselves. And, with the social media, we need the social media. And, the big thing that we've had, that the problem is that made these people really, the Muslims radical towards the Western world, is anger. We've had this anger ever since 1980 when President Carter basically got the Taliban together with bin Laden and gave them CIA training and billions of dollars to fight in Afghanistan against the Cold War.
I get this, but I want to stop you because I want to know what your answer is. What is the answer within our constitutional ability?
Well, we're going to have to keep the Muslims out of our country because, and we're going to have to do it some way because.
But many of them are here. So what's your answer?
You want my answer? Ship them all back home and strip them of their assets and get them out of our country before they do us all in. And if Hillary Clinton gets elected, I hate to say it, but I give up on the United States and I'm moving to Barbados, where at least I don't have to walk around with a gun on my side all the time.
So you're saying walk. Okay, got it. I appreciate your call. Thank you. Mike, calling from New Mexico. What's your suggestion, Mike? What do we do?
Ma'am, I first would like to thank you for taking my call and wish you a Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
And what I think about the situation is I think Donald Trump and Ted Cruz both have good ideas for dealing with this situation, both internationally and nationally. And I'd like to, instead of them letting the news media, the Democrat and Republican national committees try to get them snipping at each other, as them form a coalition covering each other's backs, and whichever one wins the Republican nomination, take the other one on as their running mate. This way I'd get to vote for both of them.
And I think that would make a lot of people happy, Mike. The question you have at this level of politics is egos, and would one of them be willing to take the back seat in this particular situation? But Mike, I think you have a lot of support out there for your idea of a Trump and Cruz ticket. We're going to be back in just a moment. I want to go to more of your calls. 800-941-7326. 800-941. Sean is the number, and there is more Sean Hannity show coming up. I'm Dr. Gina. Stay with me.
Information download. Sean Hannity and the breaking news you might have missed today. With Sean's insider information. Sean Hannity.
Welcome back. Dr. Gina. Gina Loudon here, filling in for Sean Hannity. So excited to be with you today. You can find me on Twitter, and all of the topics I talk about today, I have written about extensively. You can find links to all of the articles and to all of our guests coming up today. We've got a great lineup for you as well. You can find those at Real Dr. Gina. That's Real DRGINA, like the Italian part. And I'm going to try really hard not to crunch any cough drops in your ear today because, I kind of lost my voice. Yesterday, I had no voice at all. So I literally put out the call on social media. I told you I use social media for everything. There's a lot of wisdom out there, a lot of crazies, but a lot of wisdom. I said, everybody pray, because I'm supposed to host the Sean Hannity show tomorrow, and I'm going to do it. And so if it's going to sound like a little squeak mouse, well, then that's just going to have to happen, because this is fun. And I love this audience. Listen to this show every day, and I was not going to give up the chance. So sorry for the voice issues and the cough drop crunching, but I am loving being with you. All right. One of the suggestions that people talk about is, hey, this whole terror problem is because we've had the establishment do nothingness for so long. And you and I both know this, and I can't stand the establishment. In fact, I'll tell you, I was a stay-at-home mom of 5, best job in the world. And my husband was a senator in Missouri. And I told myself I did this. I told myself that I was doing everything I could for my children's future by raising up my own little army of patriots, right? Not so easy to do. You moms out there know this. You dads too. But that I didn't need to be in front of the cameras or behind the mic or, in any sort of public forum, because I was just there to support my husband, and that was what I wanted. And then I found out that my children's future had been hawked. When I took a look at the debt, that is the moment that everything changed for me. And I knew that I could no longer sit in the background, that I had to fight in every single way I knew how. And that's when I got on social media, and that's when I got active, and that's when I started doing media. And that was only after Obama was elected. So I haven't been doing this that long. It doesn't take that long to engage and to get yourself really into a place where you can have massive impact for your children's future. And we're going to talk more about that as well coming up. Coming up, we're going to talk to Matt Schlapp from the American Conservative Union about why this election is so important and why this election is what conservatives have really been waiting for since the days of Reagan. More Sean Hannity Show coming up. Stay where you are.
Sean Hannity Show. More behind-the-scenes information on breaking news and more bold, inspired solutions for America.
Welcome back. Sean is still out today. I am Dr. Gina Loudon, attempting to fill his shoes while he's spending the holidays with his family. You can find me on Twitter, as well as all the articles and guests we're talking about today at Real Dr. Gina. And don't forget, follow Sean as well at Sean Hannity. But let not your heart be troubled. Sean will return. We are going to attempt to go on in his absence because it's a great day in America. Yeah, terrorists are on their way to America if they aren't here already. And yep, the debt is crippling. But there is hope on the horizon. Conservatives have their best shot at beating the establishment since Reagan, really, in my opinion. Phyllis Schlafly will even tell you that we don't get to choose our nominees. The establishment often chooses them for us. And Reagan is the only one who the people actually got to choose, really, in recent history. But it could happen again in this election. And my next guest is one of the conservative warriors battling against the establishment. He is the chairman of the American Conservative Union, Matt Schlapp. Welcome to the Sean Hannity Show.
Dr. Gina, great to be with you.
Great to have you. Now, we're watching the news, and now I'm hearing from conservatives that they are disappointed because Trey Gowdy endorsed Marco Rubio, and a lot of people are saying, do the politicians, Matt, not, because I know you talk to these guys all the time, do they not understand that their endorsements at this point only make them look more like the establishment hack that the people are already rebelling against? by the likes of Donald Trump and Ted Cruz?
Yeah, I don't think they do understand that. I think that people think that endorsements from elected officials who serve in Washington, D.C. actually boost their campaigns. And I think I agree with what you're saying, which is in this time, with everything we face, getting a bunch of endorsements from people in Washington, even if they're great people like Trey Gowdy, that's the old way of playing this game. It's not really showing that you have an understanding of where people are today.
Yeah, because Trey Gowdy has done some great things, but he's done some establishment things. And the moment that he came out and endorsed Marco Rubio, I put both of them even further in my brain in the establishment hack compartment. I mean, it's just what happened in my brain. And I know that's what happened even for people who have been fans of his in recent years. That's what happens in their brain too. So it's like they don't understand. And then I hear the pundits on television say, well, Donald Trump doesn't have any endorsements. And I think, do the media pundits, Matt, not understand that only helps Donald Trump?
Yeah, I think I think you're right. There's a big disconnect here. I mean, Donald Trump is running for president in his own way. He's breaking all the rules, and he's going to change the way people are going to run for president for the next several cycles because he's so available and he's so, he gets attacked on a show. Next thing you know, he's calling into the show. And he's so present to the media and to the voters. And I think that's the key is that, for Marco Rubio, whether or not you consider him establishment or you consider him anti-establishment, the fact is this, there's no question that there is this kind of converging around him because many people look at the polls and say he might be the most electable. And I think for many conservatives who are voting, yes, they want to beat Hillary Clinton. Yes, it's paramount to win the election. But they want to make extra special sure that the person who gets the Republican nominee will stand for the principles they care about. And that's why they are taking such a long time to make sure that they get the right candidate to support.
All right. We know that Obamacare would never have happened without the support of big labor unions. But those same unions who pushed so hard to pass it now find the so-called Cadillac tax. That's the tax on high benefit plans. It hits labor union plans across the country. So they think they want that part repealed. But Ryan's budget deal and this Cromnibus action adds $9 billion to the cost of Obamacare. What does that say to the people that elected this Congress? And what does it say about Paul Ryan? And what does an organization like yours say to these people when you meet with them face to face about this action?
Yeah, I think the American Conservative Union, which I'm fortunate to chair, and which brings you CPAC each year, came out against the omnibus bill. I think most conservatives came out against the omnibus bill. I don't think we did it with any relish or anger at Paul Ryan. I think we all view Paul Ryan as someone who can actually help make this process better, this annual budget process better, where we actually get conservative victories instead of just like failing to fight for the things that we care about, which is I think where most people are frustrated. But you're right, within that omnibus package is more bad stuff than good stuff, and there's not that much good stuff. And I'm hurting to think of anything other than oil that conservatives got out of this. And when I think about how much we could have stopped in terms of Planned Parenthood, in terms of I could go down the list all day long, the refugees, so on and so forth, Obamacare. I think for most of us,
nothing.
Gina, the refugee issue, even as important as Planned Parenthood is to me, I'd love to defund it, criminalize it, put it out of business. I think when it comes to the refugee issue, that was even more important to me. I like this concept where this country stands up and says we can control who comes in and who doesn't come in.
Yeah, I think that we're going to have some strong stances on that. And I think that this Congress just made themselves so much less legitimate in the eyes of the American public after they voted for them that most of us just don't even understand it. So the American Conservative Union controls CPAC. This year's CPAC is in March. What is the date again?
March 2nd through 5th.
Yes, and it's going to be at the Gaylord National Resort and Convention Center. And I, of course, am planning to be there like so many conservatives are. This CPAC, Matt, could be pivotal. What are you doing at the American Conservative Union to make sure that this CPAC has the most impact really of ever before so that this election can be taken back by conservatives? We want to hear the plan.
Well, we could have gone earlier with CPAC And instead, we decided to go later in the calendar year than we've done in a very long time, maybe ever. And so March 2nd through 5th will be after Super Tuesday, but before the winner-take-all primaries that start on March 15th. So there's a chance, and I think an increasingly likely chance, that CPAC will hit at the point in the calendar where conservatives might have their best attempt to flex their muscle to pick the candidate of their choice. And I think it's important for all the candidates to come. If candidates don't come to CPAC, I think that sends a very strong message to conservatives. We already have several candidates who we've announced will be there. And I believe we're going to fill the largest hotel in the Washington, D.C. region. And it's going to be a chance for conservatives to listen to the pitch from these candidates and, in essence, have a conservative primary, a conservative straw poll on who that candidate should be.
But a lot of times those straw polls tend to get fixed. I've been there. What are you going to do to prevent that this year? And are you going to somehow make sure that the conservatives who are there not only get to listen to the speeches, because we listen to a lot of speeches, Matt, you know that, but get to have their opinion voiced to these candidates?
Yeah, well, a couple of things here. The first thing is we no longer allow candidates just to show up and give a stump speech. They have to give a speech on a topic that is pre-agreed to, and they have to agree to take questions from activists. Those are the two mandates that we put on their attendance at CPAC. And as far as the straw poll is concerned, remember, it's not just about the appeal to the people in the audience and the people on TV. It's also about your ability to organize. So the campaigns have to be well organized, and they have to go convince people to vote for them. But what we're going to do as an organization, just as we've done all year, we've been taking our message out across the road. We're no longer just about an organization that has this event, CPAC in D.C. We've taken CPAC on the road. We've been in Cleveland. We've been in Boulder. We've been in Texas. We've been in Kentucky. We've been in South Dakota. So when it comes to our straw poll, don't look for a couple of polling stations in that hotel. We're going to be taking personal computer devices all across the area to make sure people do cast their vote. And I think what you're going to see is a very strong conservative message coming out of what could be the conservative primary.
All right. Well, we'll hope it has massive impact this year, because I think we need it more than ever. Matt Schlapp of the American Conservative Union, CPAC, March 2nd through 5th. I will be there with bells on. It will be the 2016 CPAC at the Gaylord National Resort and Convention Center. Be there or be square. Thanks for being with us, Matt.
Thanks, Dr. Gina, and thanks for coming to CPAC, because everyone always loves seeing you.
Oh, thank you so much. Now, up next, I'm going to squeeze in some of your calls, but I'm also going to do a little personal dishing on your host, Sean Hannity, so you're not going to want to miss that. Don't forget the number, 800-941-SEAN, 800-941-7326. This is Dr. Gina Loudon filling in today for Sean Hannity. Don't go anywhere, because we'll be back in just a moment.
Sean Hannity.
Dedicated to finding the truth and upholding conservative values.
And I have every confidence that Sean is going to be doing a great job. And so people should feel some confidence about that.
This is the Sean Hannity Show.
Well, this is the Sean Hannity Show. I am Dr. Gina Loudon, filling in for him while he is away, and it's good to be with you. I appreciate all of your calls, and we are going to get right back to them. But first, I want to tell you just a little fun inside stuff, because this is the stuff that people always ask me. I can be in the grocery store, or I can be, it doesn't matter, speaking to a group, and they always come up to me privately and they say this. You know those people that you see in New York, you know, when you go do Fox News or Fox Business or any of those shows there, you know, what are they really like? And one of the people I get asked about the most, because he is about the most popular person out there in media, is Sean Hannity. And I always say, you know, he really is just exactly, and Linda and everybody else can tell you that he really is just exactly like you see him on the radio and on television. He got his start. I think it's fascinating. Same place I got my start. We both started out in Alabama on radio. He was in Huntsville, just a little north of where I was in Birmingham. Roll Tide, by the way. And we like to talk a lot about Alabama and Alabama football when I see him. Both of us always in a hurry, Very similar personality styles, hard drivers, both of us. But I want to tell you something I witnessed that was kind of fun when I was there the last time. There was a little girl on set that night. And she, we're doing the show and I'm kind of not paying attention, but I just noticed there's this little girl. And I think it's sweet because Sean always asks about my children. Very, very, and remembers everything about their lives, which is fascinating to me because I'm terrible at that. I'm doing really well if I can just remember the person, let alone their children and their children's names and their children's activities. But Sean is very into that. Cares a lot about kids, really has a heart for the next generation in ways that are shocking to me sometimes. But there was this little girl that night, and she was one of his TV crew's children. Darling little girl. Precocious. Oh my goodness. Reminded me of my firstborn. And he throws the football at the end of his television show. And I watched him throw that football. I don't even know how many takes they did. And this was his last show before Christmas. And I know he wanted to get out of there. And he was having his staff Christmas party right after that. And he threw that football so many times and retook because he wanted that little girl to get to catch the football. And then he invited her over to his party, and he proceeded to spend so much time talking with her. Adorable. I actually posted a picture of that little girl with him. So cute. So that is kind of who he is. And I just wanted to let you know that that's really who he is. You're not getting some fake person here on the show. He really is a good guy in person. I want to go to your phone calls now. We are going to go to, let's see, Jason calling from New Braunfels, Texas. Jason, welcome to the show.
Hey, Dr. Gina, thank you so much. I'm really enjoying it. I've never called the Sean Hannity show before, but I was fascinated by the conversation when he started talking about the psychology of these jihadists. And I actually tweeted to you a moment ago that these guys are not crazy. These are not people that are experiencing some kind of dissociative disorder. These folks are not corrupting Islam. They're actually perfecting it. And I think the best example I can give you and the people that are listening is the comparison between the two is that when a Christian becomes radicalized, he or she quits a good job and goes to Africa or Haiti to do good works on behalf of the innocent. And when a Muslim becomes radicalized, he leaves home and wages war upon the innocent in the name of a false prophet. But they're not crazy. They're simply perfecting what is in what they believe to be, quite incorrectly, by the way, the inspired word of God. And
so what do we do, Jason? So what's the answer? I mean, I get the problem. And I agree with you. And you just, thank you. You illuminated another portion of the problem that I hadn't pointed to. But what is the answer? Because I mean, instead of closing mosques or taking a closer look at mosques or many of the things that politicians have suggested, Jason, actually, a mosque that has been linked to Muslim Brotherhood has received millions in federal grants. I don't know if you saw the story about a Kansas City mosque owned by an Islamic umbrella organization with deep ties to the Muslim Brotherhood has received millions of dollars in federal grants over just the past several years, like $2,700,000. What do we do?
Solution, I believe, is to what we should have done after September 11th, which would have been to go nuclear. We should have said to the folks in Dhahran, Saudi Arabia, you got 24 hours to clear out. But we're going to have to start really shutting down some of these mosques. And that's the only way that it's going to get solved.
But I mean, how do you do that within constitutional confines when, if we're going to shut down mosques and whatever we have to do to the Constitution to do that, if there's anything, then what do you do to those who say, well, what happens if churches are next? What if they just don't like a certain church?
Well, then I think the Islamic faith has to be compelled to go through a reformation, very much like the Christian church did, and it has to be attended by the most high-ranking luminaries and the president of Iran and the head people in
Jason,
Iran and Indonesia.
I'm up against a hard break here, but I do appreciate your insight. Up next, I'm going to talk to Dan Joseph of the Media Research Center. In his latest video, he tackles the racism inherent in the term white Christmas. More Sean Hannity's show right after this. Stay where you are.
Didn't the IRS scandal and the NSA atrocities convince you? You need a watchdog on Washington with insider sources. You need Hannity every day.
Stop White Christmas. What could be more racist than White Christmas? And we think that the song White Christmas is insulting to people of color because it says snow is white and therefore it is good. And, but we know there are other kinds of snow, and just because it's there and it's dirty on the ground, sometimes it turns brown, sometimes it turns black. What kind of Christmases do you like? I like racially ambiguous Christmases, to be honest with you. I mean,
Yeah.
Help us out, sign our petition, stop white supremacy in the holiday season.
Oh, I'll sign it.
Oh, yeah? Okay. You're familiar with microaggression, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like aggression, only smaller. And we're not trying to ruin Christmas for anybody. I mean, we kind of are. We're telling radio stations to stop playing the song.
Okay.
Particularly, you don't.
You got my
okay, awesome, man. Because there's a lyric in here that's, we feel, because he says, "I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, just like the ones I used to know."
Mm-hmm.
You have to say, man, well, what were the Christmases like that you used to know?
Right.
Were there no black people around? And it doesn't mention anything about climate change either. And we feel that would be very appropriate considering that, the holiday season and snow. So we think they should either change the lyrics or get it off the radio once and for all.
Well, that was Dan Joseph. Welcome back. This is, of course, the Sean Hannity Show. Dr. Gina filling in today while Sean is out. Dan Joseph is one of those guys who goes around catching people in, let's just say, their stupidest moments, kind of like me thinking that I had a cough button that worked here when it actually didn't work. And so now you're all tweeting me coughing remedies. Thank you so much for that. Happy to be here with you today. Dan Joseph of mrctv.org is with us. He is the maker of that video and many others, and quite humorous there, Dan. Thanks for joining us today on the Sean Hannity Show.
Dr. Gina, I'm almost excited to hear you on the Sean Hannity Show, as I'm sure you are to be there. It's great to talk to you.
It's great to be here, cough and all. Dan, I want to. Well, I thought I had a cough button, kind of like your little bleep button, but it wasn't working apparently. So now I'm getting all these tweets of all these cough remedies.
Maybe
and believe
Sean
me,
hit it on you as a practical joke. You might have to
that would be so like him. Yes, that would be so like him to do. I'm sitting here with my little lineup of cough drops and tea and herbal teas and medicines, and I think I've taken everything under the sun. And anyway, it just nothing's working, but I'm still here and happy to be here. White Christmas, racist. I mean, you really have to go out on a limb for this, but this is what I always want to know about your videos. How many people do you have to go through to find the stupidest people?
You know what? Every time I do one of these petition videos, I get nervous because I say to myself, no, there's no way I'm going to find people stupid enough to find this particular one. But every time we go to a college campus, it is a majority. We always find a majority. There are always, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 people that catch on, and they're like, oh, I see what you're doing. A couple people on this particular video said, oh, I'm not sure about this. I'm going to go and do some more research, and then I'll come back out. And it was very, very strange. I mean, but yet it was supported because the political correctness is the primary reason for college campuses to exist today. It's not, teaching people preparing people for the outside world, preparing them to get a job. They become indoctrination factories, and it's gotten so bad that they're even these college students. These are high school graduates are even willing to sign a petition that asserts that the most famous song possibly in the history of the United States is actually a microaggression racially. And it's fascinating. I mean, they weren't just, signing it. I didn't have to really do that much convincing. They were actively excited to sign the petition. It's a sad state of affairs at George Mason University and probably campuses across the country.
But Dan, I mean, aren't you invading their safe space by going in there and making them look like the fools that they are, wanting to protest White Christmas, the song White Christmas, as racist?
You know what? I asked, if you watch the whole video, I asked if there was a safe space on campus because I was feeling a little unsafe. I felt like I needed a safe space, and they said they didn't have one there. That really disturbed me even more than how many people signed the petition with it. They didn't have a safe space. So I ended up, if you go watch the end of the video at mrctv.org, I eventually find my safe space, and you'll see where it is, and I spent some time in there to get over the video itself.
Now I have to say, because it's just too ironic. My life sometimes people ask me, how do you meet these people? I don't know. God just puts really cool people in my path, and one of them is you. And so I was at the debates, and I was backstage watching the debates, and I run into, of all people, Dan Joseph, who I've had on my show, America Trends with Dr. Gina, many, many times. But because I so enjoy your videos, but there you were, and I got to meet you for the very first time, and you said, "Hey, watch this. I'm going to go ask Chris Matthews how his leg is." And so I was watching this is your last video you did, and he didn't take too kindly to that, but it got even better.
No.
You did this great video, and I want you to talk about that, but I want to say that what happened next was really fun too. Let's have you tell about your video first, and then I'll tell you what happened next, because this is the inside stuff that people don't get to hear very often.
Right. Okay. So I'm standing there with you, and this is the first time we met. So we're chatting, and I tell my camera guy, I'm like, "Hey, look, there's Chris Matthews. He's taking a break. Let's go have a little fun with the guy." So what I do is I have him. Okay, you set up the camera so he doesn't know we're filming him. I have my lav mic on, and I go up to him, and I say, "Hey, I love your work."
Okay, wait.
Like I'm a
wait, Dan.
Chris Matthews fan.
Dan, hold on, because we're gonna go ahead. We've got a little audio from that. Go ahead.
Chris Matthews, hey, I'm Dan Joseph. I just wanted to meet you, say hi. I'm with the Media Research Center. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good.
You having a good time?
No.
We're with the Media Research Center. We just want to know really quickly, how is your leg?
What leg?
The leg. Is the thrill still there in the leg, or is it not? What was that?
Just go to hell. Just leave me alone.
Well, is the leg okay? Are you limping, or is it? Did the thrill go away with surgery, or did it just go away on its own? All right, we're rooting for you. We're rooting for you over at MRC, man. Good meeting you.
But the sad part is that
guy.
He's grumpy, but they couldn't see your Cheshire cat. And my producer Jason is doubled over with his face beet red laughing at this. It was so funny because what they can't see as a listening audience is your Cheshire cat grin after that. And then what else happened right after that is hilarious. I went over to try to watch the debate from the media room, which is kind of right behind where the actual candidates are. And who comes and sits next to me? But poor Chris Matthews. And so he says to me, "I know you from somewhere. Where do I know you from?" And I said, "Well, you must be watching your competition, because I don't recall ever being on your network." And he goes, "Oh, I should have known. You've got Fox News written all over you." And I said, "How's your leg? How's your leg, Mr. Matthews?" And I mean, if looks could kill, I would be dead right now, and we would not be having this conversation, Dan Joseph. He did not.
I didn't know about this. You asked him how his leg was too?
Right after that.
Oh, that's beautiful. I had no idea.
Yes.
Oh, man, he must have been deer in the headlights right there. That's fantastic. And what did he do then? Did he just walk away?
No, he actually just sat there and didn't talk to me the whole rest of the time that the debates were taking place. And so, so I don't think... Yeah, I don't think I made a friend, but this was a pivotal moment in media when Chris Matthews said that Obama gave him a thrill up his leg, for those who don't remember, because it portrayed for the whole wide world how biased so much of the media was and is for this administration, right, Dan? That's why this is so significant. It spilled the beans on them.
You absolutely hit the nail on the head. This is the seminal moment for liberal media bias in the cable news era. We all knew that the media was in the tank for Barack Obama from the very beginning, but this is the point where it got exposed. And he's going to have to live with this for the rest of his career, I guess. How he's still on the air, I have no idea. I mean, he looked terrible. He was walking around the debate room like he looked like Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh, just like depressed and possibly sick or something.
And angry.
Who knows? I mean, and this is going to be how much of America remembers him, because most Americans don't watch his show. They're busy watching Fox News to see you, but they don't know. You know, the conservatives out there and the people who follow cable news and listen to talk radio, and I know a lot of them understand this is hard evidence. And you know what? I don't like doing these ambush videos. I really don't. I do them every once in a while, but this was too perfect to pass up.
It was.
I'm so glad you were there to share in that moment, and I'm so glad you did. Well, I have to wonder how many people ask him this just on a regular basis, but I'm so glad we caught it on film.
Yeah, no, it was absolutely amazing. And so I'm just curious, behind the scenes, again, I always like to give people that, because they can see all of your amazing videos at mrctv.org, and they can find you on Twitter at DanJoseph78. But I really want to know, like, how far in advance, Dan, did you plan this? Did you go to?
No. We came up with that on the spot. I mean, that was something, we were bored because we didn't really have anything to do between the second debate or the first debate and the second debate. I mean, Lindsey Graham was surrounded by people, so we were like, I guess we're not talking to Lindsey Graham. Oh no, so sad. But we just sort of were sitting there. I talked to you, which was exciting because it was the first time I'd met you outside of America Trends, which, we Skype in. And I was just thinking, let's do this. Let's, it takes a little bit of moxie, I guess, to go up to a celebrity and say something to his face that he knows is going to make him mad. But sometimes you just have to do it because we know, he deserves it. If anybody on TV deserves it, anybody in the liberal media deserves what he got. It's him. Because
he got it in spades
he's not just a liberal. He's just a jerk too. He's a mean guy. So I have no regrets, and I don't feel bad about it.
Yeah, I tweeted links, by the way, to all those videos at Real Dr. Gina so folks can find it. I'll tell you what, Chris Matthews got that in spades because you did the video. Then I said that to him sitting down. He must have felt haunted, like, it was like the Grinch, And then I went on Sean Hannity's TV show. And what was the topic? Dan Joseph's video. So I got to talk about it again. Again. And so I think he's had his fill of us, and we're probably not on his Christmas card list this year. I'm thinking.
What? I was disinvited to his New Year's Eve party. I'm very, very upset about that. I was really looking forward to meeting Chris Hayes and Rachel Maddow and then trying to tell them apart. It's going to be a little New Year's game for me. But, maybe next year.
Maybe next year. Dan Joseph, thank you so much for being with us today on the Sean Hannity Show. Folks can check out your stuff at mrctv.org. And you have a happy New Year, Dan Joseph.
Same to you, Dr. Gina. Always love talking to you.
All right. Absolutely. Likewise. I am Dr. Gina filling in for Sean today. And coming up next, I'm going to go to more of your phone calls. We are going to make a plan together. We are going to make a plan for what we're going to do in these next few months before we elect a new president. We're going to make a plan. Are you ready? Stay with us. More coming up right after this.
The land of the free. Because of the brave. It's the Sean Hannity Show.
Hey, it's Dr. Gina Loudon filling in today for Sean Hannity. Happy to be with you. That number, 800-941-SEAN. You can call in because we are going to start to converse about a plan. That's what I want to do. And I just want to thank you for all of the cough remedies that you're going to say no to Sean Hannity when he asks you to fill in for him. You're not going to say no matter if you have laryngitis and a cough or what. Even if your cough button is broken, you're still going to do the show. And that's what I'm doing. And I appreciate those of you out there, like Greg Danson on Twitter, who says he likes my raspy voice. Thanks, Greg. Appreciate that. You and my mom. That's about it. And also Robert Welsh, who says, what is Chris Matthews' least favorite song? After the Thrill Is Gone by the Eagles. Ba-dum-bum. Very good. Very good. I love you guys participating. You can find me on Twitter at Real Dr. Gina. And of course, Sean at Sean Hannity. I already implored you and got called down on it by a caller. I already implored you to please get on social media. I think it's really important, and I think it really has something to do with whether or not we will win the next election. Don't forget, a lot of what Obama did was on social media, and you may not like it, but I think we all need to be on there if we really are serious about communicating with people who, because this is the thing, the truth is on our side. So all we have to do is just speak the truth. And I believe if we can penetrate those minds that are so closed off, some of them are open. I told a story in my book. I'd like you to get a copy of it if you'd like. It's called What Women Really Want. I co-authored this book with the amazing Anne-Marie Morel of Politichicks.com, if you don't know her. Also, Morgan Brittany. You probably know that name. Pretty legendary actress who pretty much gave it all up one night on the Sean Hannity Show when she admitted she was a conservative. She doesn't get cast in Hollywood movies anymore. But she starred, as you know, in Dallas. She was Catherine Wentworth. She's been in movies. She's iconic. She's been in movies going back to Hitchcock. And she doesn't work now because she admitted she's a conservative. You can't do that in Hollywood. Trust me. I live here in California, not too far from Hollywood. I spend a lot of time in Hollywood. I even get to go to some of the funky Hollywood parties. And I know the way they look at me when they find out I'm conservative. I try to let them get to know me first and maybe to relate to them on one issue. And so that then, maybe it's love for animals. I do love animals. But, maybe it's just, I don't know, humanitarian stuff. I think that's important. Mission work. There are lots of ways to relate to people that you don't agree with on other issues. And I try to start there with my friends in Hollywood so that I can perhaps help penetrate their thought and their lack of reality, as it were. Anyway, in my book, What Women Really Want, I do talk about what we are going to tell our children we were doing 20 years from now. I mean, because we're either going to have a country or we're not going to have a country. That's the bottom line. So 20 years from today, I asked this question in my book, 20 years from today, what are you going to tell your children you were doing? Because I met a woman named Kitty Worthman who was in a concentration camp across from her mother. And that's the question she asked her mother. What were you doing to save our country from Nazi rule? If my children ever ask me that, I want to be able to answer that question. How about you? We're going to go to your calls. Also, coming up next, Tamara Holder up next. What will the White House look like with Bill Clinton as the first frat boy? Stay with us. More Sean Hannity.
Sean Hannity Show. More behind-the-scenes information on breaking news and more bold, inspired solutions for America.
Well, this is the final hour of the Sean Hannity Show. I kind of hate that. This is Dr. Gina and filling in for him today. I'm having a lot of fun with you. We are having a blast over on Twitter. You got to get over there. Find me at Real Dr. Gina and also rev up your phone calls because I'm going to take you right after Tamara. You know the number, 800-941-SEAN, 800-941-7326. Also, want to invite you to grab a copy of our book, What Women Really Want, because they lie to you, We know that your vote is worth a lot more to you than free birth control and access to abortion, which is what the left would have you believe. So you want to grab a copy of our book, What Women Really Want. You can do that at drgina.com, drgina.com, drginashow.com. Yeah, drginashow.com. Sorry about that. I don't know my own website now. It's the cold medicine. I blame the cold medicine. I just kind of took everything that anybody tweeted or posted that was good for a cold because I wanted to be here with you today. So whatever mistakes I make, including the broken cough button, I'm just going to blame it all on the cold medicine. There you go. The big news on the campaign trail this week is that Hillary has brought out her secret weapon, that being Bill. Personally, I think it's the worst idea the Clinton campaign has ever come up with, but maybe I'm wrong. And that's why I want to bring in one of my favorite liberals to find out what she thinks. Tamara Holder, welcome back to the Sean Hannity Show.
Hey, Gina, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas and almost Happy New Year. We've got a lot to look forward to here in this new year, certainly. One of those things, though, is seeing a lot more of Bill Clinton. Are you looking forward to that?
Look, I think Bill Clinton has a lot of swagger. He's definitely more appealing than Hillary and more likable. Remember that after the impeachment proceedings, I think it was 98, 99, whatever the year was is irrelevant, but after the impeachment proceedings, his approval ratings went up to, I believe, 76, 77, 78%. So he's a likable guy to the left, and whether or not you like Hillary, she needs help in the likability area.
But it's not like she's losing in the primary. And Bill Clinton doesn't have that appeal necessarily to independents and Republicans. And when a Republican comes along, like, let's say Donald Trump, and everybody says, but what, he's not going to bring in independents and Democrats. So why is Bill Clinton being, trotted out here in front of us for all of us to see when he doesn't really have that appeal, especially not to Republicans? They remember him as sort of a tragedy.
Well, because if you said it yourself, if the Republicans aren't going to be voting for Hillary, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant to what Hillary Clinton's doing because they're going to vote. You and other conservatives and Republicans are going to vote in the red anyway, whether it's Donald Trump or Cruz or Rubio or whomever it is. So it's really a conversation that I think is just irrelevant to your bigger issues on the right as to who your person's going to be because, it's unfortunate that the right, the men on the right especially, don't bring their wives out and don't share their wives with the world in a way that Hillary Clinton wants to share Bill Clinton with the world, for lack of a better way of saying it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I see a lot of the wives. I mean, Rick Santorum, of course, brings his wife out. Ted Cruz, you see a lot of her. I mean, Donald Trump has had his wife. She was right there with him in front of all the media there at the last debate. I was there and I saw her. So, I mean, there are some wives and children, although you understand when the left does things like what they did to Ted Cruz with the monkey pictures of his children. Well, maybe they want to keep their families a little bit sacred. But I guess my question is, does this mean that Hillary is actually worried about the primary?
No, I don't think she's worried at all. But interestingly, there was a profile piece, I believe, in the New York Times about Bernie Sanders' wife and how she's really by his side and she has her own political tower, if you will, and brings something to the presidency and would bring something as a first lady. So I think that there's instead of attacking Bill Clinton or attacking the strategy. When you go into the White House, you're bringing your family, like you said, you're bringing your spouse, and there's nothing wrong with having two brains and people that can contribute to America. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't understand why whomever she brings into the conversation is all of a sudden a bad thing, whether or not it's her husband.
Well, I don't know. I think that, especially when Hillary wants to talk about, what women do really want and her defense of women, certainly bringing up the topic of Bill harkens us back to a day where Hillary wasn't looking quite like all the feminists that she claims herself to be today. And I think that might be a problem. Do you think that women's groups are going to have any problems with Bill being made a centerpiece in this campaign?
Well, I think he's just naturally a centerpiece. It's not her fault or her choice. He is a super brand in and of himself. But, I have a huge problem with these groups that come out because I am a pro-family woman and I believe that people have indiscretions and they make mistakes throughout their marriage. Bill Clinton obviously made a huge mistake and it was aired all across the world. But she chose to keep her marriage together, which I'm sure a lot of your listeners have been through this, or they have friends or family members who've been through infidelity. She chose to keep her family together. She chose to work through it, and there's something to be respected about that. I don't understand the attack on her for staying with her husband who cheated. And he's not the first one, and he's not going to be the last one, and I think that there's something to respect about a woman that makes that choice. Would I do it? Most likely not. I called off a wedding because of infidelity, so I have some personal experience from this, but I believe that every person can make their own choice in order to keep their family together or not.
Yeah, but I think there's maybe a little more here, Tamara, than just an infidelity. I mean, there was some downright abuse of women that Bill Clinton has really never, to my knowledge, made any apologies for. Don't those women deserve an apology before women in America are going to support he and his wife to be back in the White House again?
No, I don't think so. First of all, we're talking about 20 years ago or over 20 years ago. And you don't know that. You don't know what he's gone through. Maybe he's settled lawsuits. Maybe, maybe they dealt with it already. I don't think to bring things up from the past, particularly if you're going to talk about somebody like a Republican favorite right now, Donald Trump, who's been through 3 marriages, Melania actually said in an interview that she didn't want to be introduced to Trump because he was a known ladies' man, that this is the road that we want to go down. I think that we just need to stick to the issues because it's not going to get us anywhere.
I mean, I don't think it's the greatest asset in the world to Donald Trump, his, marriages, but I don't think he's ever been accused, at least that I know of any sexual abuse toward women, that there are just hordes of women out there who say that Bill Clinton has sexually abused them. And I just think that he needs to answer for that if he wants to be, a centerpiece in this campaign. I want to, though, say, too, this sort of illuminates some of the questions that were brought up about the Clinton Foundation and Bill's speeches to foreign countries that Hillary, of course, had influence as to whether or not he would go in her position as Secretary of State. Do you not think that might be a problem for Hillary with Democrat voters?
I think that Democratic voters have a lot of questions about the Clintons and their trustworthiness and their business dealings and their foundation and speaking fees. Remember, she said that they left the White House poor. They also did, however, create an empire. I don't know if a foundation should be turned into an empire, but most former presidents, make millions and millions of dollars on the speaking circuit. And listen, here you bring up an interesting point. You bring up questions about their foundation. You bring up questions about Bill's past and whether he abused women. One of the things that I think we need to discuss is that we have a judicial we have a judiciary. We have something in America called the courts. And if there is any kind of issue to illegal business dealings or illegal criminal behavior or sexual abuse, then the issue should be that we need to look to our investigators and the people that the taxpayers pay. We pay our police departments, we pay our prosecutors, we pay our judges. These are all public officials that have a duty to investigate and take people to trial, whether or not it's Bill Clinton or anybody else. I mean, we see this from the NFL all the way up to the presidency. Mm-hmm. That is where we need to have a conversation. We can't just continue to accuse people of doing things without them being taken to trial or at least being investigated.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's the court of public opinion too, and I guess that'll just have to determine some of this. I know you're not, Tamara. You and I are friends, and I make no secret of that. We have our conversations about these things, and then we laugh and enjoy a nice dinner together, as we recently did. I know that you're not the biggest Hillary fan in the world, but is that who you're planning to vote for at this point in the election, if I can ask you?
I don't know, and that's just really an honest answer. I really liked Donald Trump to begin with. I liked his message to begin with. I think now what he's doing is he's taking advantage of the ignorance of the American voter by just continuing to say hateful things about every single person. And it's unfortunate, whether it's women or Mexicans or Muslims or fat people. It's just the list goes on, and it gets old. Sure, you have to get in and you have to get dirty, but it's unfortunate because I wanted to like him, and now I just feel like he's doing this all for showmanship and really taking advantage of people's ignorance.
Well, that was an excellent lead-in because we're going to talk about that actually a little bit later in the show. Tamara, thank you so much for being with us. I appreciate it. As I said, Happy New Year to you. And it'll be interesting to see as we kind of watch this whole campaign unfold who you will ultimately support, because I'm watching this. I really am interested to see, because you're pretty honest compared to some of those just lockstep Democrats out there. So we appreciate that.
Thank you so much, and have a wonderful Happy New Year, and you're doing a great job filling in for Sean.
Thank you so much. Now, coming up, we are going to talk to you. We're going to go straight to your calls. 800-941-SEAN is the number. You know that, 800-941-SEAN. Meanwhile, get busy on Twitter. @RealDrGina is that Twitter handle, and we're having fun there. We'll be back in just a moment. Dr. Gina Loudon filling in for Sean Hannity. Stay where you are.
Inspired solutions for America. This is the Sean Hannity Show.
This segment is all you, as is the last one, because that's frankly the whole reason I wanted to host this show, was to get to talk to you. That call-in number, 800-941-7326, 800-941-SEAN. This is obviously Dr. Gina Loudon filling in for him today. You can find me on Twitter at Real Dr. Gina. You can learn more about me at drginashow.com. Going first to Roger, holding for a long time from Norfolk, Virginia. Roger, welcome to the Sean Hannity Show.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. What's your comment here?
Well, I had an idea of how to solve this Muslim situation, and you kind of touched on it earlier by getting the Muslim community to police itself. You have to get a big convention, the biggest one they've ever known, and get them to turn on the radicals. I know that the radicals are only a small percentage of them, so you have to find a way to get the rest of them to suppress all the radicals that are out there.
Oh, all right, Roger. Well, I appreciate that comment. I don't know how that's done by the outside. I think that's something that has to be organic. I feel like that's something that the organizers of Islam need to do, and I would like to see that. I'm not seeing that. That concerns me. Does that concern you?
Yes, it does. Because if it comes from if it comes from outside the Muslim community, meaning the Christians or the rest of the world, they're just going to look at it as another way that we're oppressing them, and that kind of thing is they've got a long memory of the Crusades, and that's what they're always going to refer to.
Yeah. So it still leaves me just wanting that answer. I would love to see that happen organically within the Islamic community, but I'm just not seeing a lot of that. You do see your occasional people that will say the right things and make me feel a little better. And then I just think, well, okay, so start a movement. How hard is it? I mean, many of us were a part of the Tea Party movement or other movements that have happened in this country that became really big and had a lot of influence, whether people want to deny it or not. Roger, I appreciate that call so much. And we'll hope that something like that does spring up organically. I want to get to Amy calling from Houston, Texas. Amy, welcome to the Sean Hannity Show.
Hi, Gina. I've got a solution for you.
All right, good.
If we're going to take back America's future, conservative Christians need to get back into the public school system as teachers, administrators, parents, and students. We need to stop hiding.
What do you say to homeschool moms like me?
Well, I say you still need to be a part of your community, which you are. But you started off your show by talking about all the women who are sitting in the pews and not voting. It's because they've chosen a life of exclusivity. And children are learning about religions from their school teachers. Children are learning about laying down and anti-bullying and don't stand up for what's right from school teachers. Every day the pledge is done in public schools. Teachers, conservatives need to be there leading the charge.
I appreciate that comment, Amy. I agree with you. And people do need to get more involved, absolutely. And even if you are homeschoolers, taking part in your local community and in that education is important too. Thanks again, Amy, for that call. We're going to get to more of your calls in the last segment of the show. Next segment coming up, spokesperson for Donald Trump, Katrina Pearson, answers some major Trump questions. Stay right where you are. More in just a moment.
The new Sean Hannity Show, talking about what's right for America, with a renewed commitment to keep you up to date on the breaking news stories.
Well, we're back. I'm Dr. Gina Loudon, filling in today for Sean Hannity while he is out on a top secret mission. I'm totally making that up. I have no idea. Follow Sean and me on Twitter. We are both pretty active there at Sean Hannity and me at Real Dr. Gina. Want to also invite you to grab a copy of our best-selling book. It is called What Women Really Want. And if you are a woman or know a woman, this book will speak to your heart about the things you feel like you've been screaming that have been falling on deaf ears. It is written from the perspective of two of my favorite conservative women who joined me in this effort. Anne-Marie Morell from Politichicks.com and also Morgan Brittany. You know her from Hollywood fame. And we wrote the book together because we felt that we were tired of being told what women really want and that we had other ideas. And one of the very first people to hop on board and support this book, along with folks like Sarah Palin and others, was Sean Hannity, as a matter of fact. So we've got his endorsement. Then you know it's good, right? You can grab a copy of that at drginashow.com, drginashow.com. I am so delighted right now at your Twitter engagement. And I'm going to give a huge shout out to Tom Hefner, who said, at Real Dr. Gina, I'm almost 50. Never thought I'd like Twitter. Now I may need your advice about Twitter addiction. Well, there's a 13-step program for that, Tom, but I'll have to give you that after the election. Ironically, I love when things like this happen. Ironically, one of my good friends who has been in the trenches with me, working alongside each other and through all of the frustrations of this administration as our government got bigger and bigger, our debt got bigger and bigger, and our influence as we the people seemed to somehow get smaller and smaller. That person is Katrina Pearson, and she was recently appointed spokeswoman for Donald Trump. Not an easy job, I might point out. She joins me here right now to answer all of the questions we have on our minds about what the Donald is up to today. Katrina, welcome to the Sean Hannity Show.
Hi, Gina. Great to talk to you today. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. My pleasure. One of the things I want to talk about first, it's so interesting, this whole Trump phenomenon, and you've just got it. Your head's got to be spinning. I think I text you probably every other day and say, do you have your head around what you're doing yet? It's a big deal. This is changing history. One way or another, whatever happens with Trump, he has changed the dialogue. He's changed the conversation. He's changed the way that people view elections in general. And one of the things that's very interesting, in fact, I wrote my post about that this past weekend. You can find that on my Dr. Gina Show page, drginashow.com page, rather. And it's about the Bradley effect. And Katrina, I don't know if you've ever studied this, but it basically says that the Democrats have done a great job of telling us that we're racists. And so the Bradley effect, based on a case where a guy named Bradley ran for office and he was black, and people said they were going to vote for him, and they weren't going to vote for him, but they said they were because they didn't want to sound like racists. People are surmising that might be happening a little bit in the Trump campaign, interestingly, that because the left has so branded Trump a racist, that when people are called and asked, are you going to vote for him, that the Bradley effect would have less of those people admitting they're going to vote for him, which would mean his numbers are even bigger than we know. What do you think about that? Especially, and I just want to point out, and not that this matters in any other way, but as a black woman, what do you think about that?
Well, I think you are absolutely right. I get so many emails daily, Gina, from people that I would never have imagined telling me that they want to vote for Donald Trump. Who do I need to contact to either change my party affiliation, or how do I get registered? And it has just been absolutely amazing. And you are absolutely right. People are not admitting to the fact that they are voting for Donald Trump. I've had Bernie Sanders supporters email me and say, if Bernie doesn't win the nomination, I'm voting for Trump. And that's just, you're right. Every day I cannot wrap my head around what is going on.
It is crazy.
Donald
it is crazy.
Trump seems to have mastered the idea of, this is politics, and I'm not going to play by the rules of the left, and that's brilliant.
All right. So one of the interesting things that has happened today is that somebody came up with a sound clip, rather, of Donald Trump commenting on the Clinton sex scandal. And this is what he had to say about that. I want to get your impression of this, Katrina.
And, I mean, look at the trouble Bill Clinton got into with something that was totally unimportant. And they tried to impeach him, which was nonsense.
Katrina, what impact will this statement of Donald Trump have on his campaign?
Well, I don't think it's going to have any impact, mainly because he was comparing the fact that Bill Clinton had an indiscretion and then lied under oath, and then the things that George Bush did, like going into war and bailing out the banks. I mean, there's just a number of things where some people get away with things and some people don't. And it really doesn't matter which side of the political aisle you're on, but that was in the context of comparing what Bill Clinton did versus what George Bush did. And you know what? It goes to the exact same thing we're dealing with today, because even during the Clinton impeachment trials, you had Republicans spend millions of dollars trying to make the case, and they didn't even follow through. And I think we're still dealing with that kind of thing today. They didn't do it, Gina. They didn't even follow through. So, of course, it was just nonsense. But if you're going to pick the fight, go fight it. And they didn't even do that then.
Katrina, what do you say to those who say that Donald Trump is not a pure conservative, that he's not a conservative in the brand that maybe you and I are? Since I know your politics, this is easy for me. But, just little things like his support for ethanol or his attending or having the Clintons attend his wedding, comments like the one I just showed you. What do you say back to those people who say he's not the kind of conservative that I am, and those who maybe doubt that he'll be loyal to the conservative ideology if he is elected?
Well, I hear people all the time tell me that Eric Cantor is a conservative, John Boehner is a conservative. So I'm not even quite sure what conservative means anymore. But what I do know is that Donald Trump's politics today are very much in line with our mainstream grassroots conservatives. I'll put it that way. And yes, he has done some things in the past and supported people in the past, but so have many other people. A lot of the pundits on TV today criticizing him for being either a Democrat in the past or supporting a Democrat in the past did the exact same thing. And they're making their living today off conservative commentary. So to sit here and say that somebody couldn't have been a Democrat in the past and be a Republican today is complete nonsense, because he's also been a Republican in the past. Like when he let Ronald Reagan use his airplane to go turn in his ballots. Like when he went out there with George Bush, number one. And he's been out there and endorsing Mitt Romney. He's endorsed Ron Paul. So nobody wants to talk about the Republican side of things that he's been on, only because this is all about how do we take down Donald Trump.
Katrina, do you get a chance to ever really talk to him and hear his heart? Does he have a true conservative philosophical underpinning, I guess is my question. Because some of his comments sometimes will seem a little different, just not the way that normal conservatives would talk. Mm-hmm. What do you know of his heart that you can tell from what you can say from private conversations with him that you maybe would want the American public to know?
Oh, yeah. Mr. Trump is 100% in this to win for the conservative movement. He doesn't speak the political speak that we do, which is a big part of the problem when conservatives are looking for key words. Honestly, Gina, we are conditioned to look for the candidate that's actually auditioning for a part in 1776 on Broadway. And he doesn't use those types of terms, but he is 100% it. He loves his country. He loves people. He loves being around the people, too. And he is more about common sense and fairness. To give you a perfect example, like you mentioned, the ethanol subsidies. In his heart, Mr. Trump is 100% against subsidies, period. But the way he talks about ethanol is very simple. He feels that you shouldn't cut from the bottom up. You should cut from the top down. So until we get rid of the cronyism and the corruption at the top with all the politicians, we shouldn't be cutting off farmers. Those should be the last people to get cut.
People are mentioning a lot on Twitter and here on the show, callers and whatever, that they would like to see a Trump and Cruz alliance. Can you speak to the likelihood of that to the degree that you can?
Well, I think what we've seen throughout the campaign that there isn't really any hostility between the two. They really don't go after each other. There was that one little tit for tat when Senator Cruz said something behind the scenes that came out, and Mr. Trump hit back a little bit. But, since then, it's pretty much been the same as it always has been. And I think what we're going to see when the caucuses begin in about a month from now and how the primary falls out, we might be looking at 1 and 2, but I think it's really going to come down to, how that turns out, what the people want, what's really important moving forward, and who's best to take on Clinton, maybe a Castro ticket. And so I think all of those decisions will be made very, very soon.
Tusky Tim on Twitter, Katrina, says, @RealDrGina, my union brothers are mostly Dems and will be voting in the GOP primaries for @RealDonald Trump. We're hearing so much of that. One hesitation I hear from conservatives is, what is his real adherence to the Constitution of the United States? Does he understand it? Does he know it? Does he know the Bill of Rights? Is he able to cite it to you in private conversations, Katrina? Because we don't hear a whole lot of that in his speeches.
Well, again, that goes back to, we're used to people auditioning for 1776 on Broadway. He does know it. He does understand it. He does respect it. Sam Clovis is his top policy advisor, who's a big-time constitutionalist and professor. So he is very much aware of what conservatives are concerned about, and he's got the right people around him to make sure that that stays on track, because it's very important for him to restore America. We hear that all the time. You can go back to interviews from Mr. Trump back in the 80s talking about the corruption and how things are bad and how we're spending and we're creating debt. That is Mr. Trump today. All those same things. He hasn't really changed his core values of what it takes to make America great again. So I really don't think we have a concern there. And you are absolutely right about the unions. You know, I'll tell you a little story. I was in D.C., and in my Uber, I'm always polling my Uber drivers, and I had a young man that immigrated over from Afghanistan, and he told me he was voting for Trump, and it was the simplest reason I've ever heard. He told me simply this: I'm voting for Mr. Trump because he has signed tens of thousands of paychecks, and he knows how important it is for a man to feed his family.
Wow. Well, that's pretty important.
So powerful and so simple, and I think that makes the case.
Katrina Pearson, spokesperson for @Real Donald Trump. Thank you so much for being with us, Katrina. And shine on.
Gina.
You're sure doing a great job. Thanks so much. All right, now in the last segment today, we are going to take your calls because it really is all about you. That is why I wanted to do this show. I love this audience. Can't wait to hear more from you. So we're going to take your calls in this last segment. I hope you'll stay with us here on the Sean Hannity Show. More in just a moment.
Gets the gas that won't go on any other radio shows, and he does it every single day. This is the Sean Hannity Show.
Well, the show is almost over, and that has gone way too fast. I'm Dr. Gina Loudon, filling in for Sean Hannity today, and you can find me on Twitter @Real Dr. Gina. And I hope you will. I've appreciated all of your communication thus far on Twitter. It's been a lot of fun. I want to get straight down to your phone calls. 800-941-SEAN, 800-941-7326. I'm going to go to Lily calling from Oklahoma. Lily is my daughter's name. Hi, Lily. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Dr. Gina. I can't wait to get your book and read it.
Thank you.
Well, I think we're not serious about this getting safe from Islam. And it's not radical Islam. It's fundamental Islam. Until we declare it a political ideology and a theocracy, not a true religion, and not subject to the constitutional protections of our Constitution.
Excellent. Well put. And I don't know what else to say. It does fly in the face of our Constitution. I don't understand why that's okay. And I would just submit that if some Christian sect came up today and started doing the things that radical, or as you said, fundamental Islam is doing, there would be such outrage within the ranks of Christendom. You know, Christian churches would be out in the street protesting, as we did, by the way. Remember the Westboro Baptists, who never killed anyone, but just made a lot of trouble for our troops. And Christians went crazy on that, remember?
Yes. Well, also, just one more thing. This is an ideology, and it's not racial. Anybody who tries to make this into a racial issue needs to be shut down immediately, because people of all races are Islam, and people of all races defend this country, and this is not
it's not racial
at all. It's ideological.
No, I agree with you, Lily. Thank you for your call so much. I appreciate it. Going now to Shirley, calling from Virginia.
Good afternoon, Dr. Gina.
Good afternoon. Super quick. We have no time left, but I want you to get one comment in.
Yes, I have an 18-year-old new voter who is very frustrated with hearing the same candidates over and over and over on talk radio, and never the candidate he's been working his heart out for, and that's Rick Santorum. He hears about Trump and Carson and Cruz, and he can't hear anything about his own candidate because of media blackout on him, other than hearing that the candidate's using Rick Santorum's message from his blue-collar book. Which is
I'm almost out of time, Shirley. I got to let you go, but I got to say, I like him too. Especially his daughter, Bella, has a trisomy issue, just like my son, Samuel. So I relate to him greatly and supported him in the last election. Think he's a great guy. Thanks for your call. Thanks to Sean for letting me fill in today. Thanks to you for being here, the amazing Linda, and to Lauren and Ethan, our engineer Stephen, of course my ever awesome producer Jason here in San Diego. Find me, Real Dr. Gina, on Twitter. Let not your heart be troubled. Go boldly now and live the truth.